What do you know about PFAS chemicals?
Not that much.
No, I do not.
It's the first time I'm hearing about it.
According to VDH, per and polyfluoroalkyl substances, or PFAS chemicals, are man-made industrial-produced compounds that have been around since the 1940s. There are more than 4,000 different PFAS chemicals.
Our non-stick cookware, our stain-resistant textiles, carpets, personal care products, cleaners.
Dr. Tony Singh says these chemicals are known as forever chemicals and don't break down in the environment. Possible health effects related to being exposed to these chemicals include developmental effects during pregnancy, kidney and testicular cancers, and immune effects.
That's concerning to hear.
Sound like water that I would not want to drink.
Many in Hampton Roads we talked with have questions about these chemicals.
I would like to be more knowledgeable about it.
How does it affect me if I am drinking it?
Singh says VDH has been staying on top of PFAS chemicals since 2020. Last summer, 63 samples were collected from 45 water systems in the Commonwealth. This included 6 water systems in Hampton Roads. Now, of these 6 systems, only one location had PFAS above what's called practical quantitation level, which Singh says is the lowest concentration of PFAS that can be measured with high accuracy. That one spot was the city of Newport News.
We want to get ahead and explain to them what PFAS are.
Newport News Waterworks Director Jan Legulek says they've been proactive when it comes to PFAS chemicals, being asked in 2013 by the EPA to monitor the chemicals.
What is important is to find out what those chemicals are in a drinking water.
Now, Legulek says to put into perspective how many PFAS chemicals are in their water, imagine 1 teaspoon inside 2,000 Olympic-sized swimming pools.
Very, very, very small to detect. We are well below, about an order of magnitude below the health advisory standards.
Is this something to be concerned about in Newport News?
It is, the chemicals is a concern, and that's why the US EPA is looking into it. But the levels that we are in the drinking water at Newport News, there's no concern to be having.
But we wanted to see how testing for drinking water in Newport News is done. Newport News Waterworks allowed News 3 inside their secure facility, Hardwoods Mill Water Treatment Plant, to see for ourselves.
We have actually sample taps that will tell us this is the part of the treatment plant where you can get it. In particular, we have what we call the finished water tap. Typically, when we talk about finished water, is what the customer will see in the pipes going into their homes.
So this would be the drinking water here?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Gotcha. Water Quality Manager Sherry Williams walked us through what testing is like for PFAS chemicals.
Contractual lab that we use sends us the bottles and the coolers. They already have the preservatives in them.
She says samples gathered here are iced up and sent to a lab out of state for testing, and they usually get results back about a month later.
The finished water we've been doing quarterly. We were doing it more frequently for the source water. It really depends on the source. We were doing it weekly. Now we've gotten a pretty good baseline.
Legulek says the goal is leveling off PFAS chemicals so more don't get into the supply, while pinpointing the exact source of PFAS chemicals in Hampton Roads. In Newport News, Zach Dahlheimer, News.
If people are being exposed to that, they should know.
We're talking PFAS chemicals, man-made industrially produced compounds, also known as forever chemicals. Last month, we looked into PFAS presence in drinking water around Hampton Roads. What do you know about PFAS chemicals?
Not that much.
It's the first time I'm hearing about it.
It's just one of those little things that is everywhere and no one seems to know about it.
Jared Hayes and Scott Faber are with the Environmental Working Group, a national environmental health group that's been keeping tabs on PFAS chemicals for more than 20 years.
And they've been really strongly linked to cancer, especially testicular and kidney cancer, to harm to the reproductive system and harm to the immune system.
Last August, the group put out a report referencing DoD records they obtained, stating high levels of PFAS chemicals were found in groundwater of at least 9 military installations, including 3 in Hampton Roads, Fort Eustis, Langley Air Force Base, and Naval Weapons Station Yorktown. Hayes says the largest source of PFAS chemicals at bases is firefighting foam.
We use firefighting foam made with PFAS to put out jet fuel fires.
It was used in training exercises widely.
But most of the PFAS that's been discharged on the ground at military bases and then worked its way into the groundwater at those bases.
Now, of the 9 military bases referenced in the group's report, the highest detection of PFAS chemicals were found here at Langley. But why Langley?
Air bases are obviously places where there are a lot of airplanes, helicopters, jet planes, etc. And those are the places where more training would have been naturally undertaken with these firefighting foams made with PFAS.
EPA has a lifetime health advisory, and that's the safe amount that a human can consume. That's at 70 parts per trillion. And so the amount found at Langley, 2.2 million parts per trillion, is orders of magnitude larger than that.
We took the EWG's report to the Department of Defense. They wouldn't give us an interview, but instead referred us to online resources from the department. That says DoD officials have already invested more than $1.5 billion in PFAS-related research and cleanup. We asked EWG their take on this investment.
The 1 point some odd billion that they've invested so far, just a drop in the bucket.
The online resources given to us say the DoD also has a research and development effort in place to help speed up cleanup and find substitutes for firefighting foam.
They're definitely getting the message. They're beginning to take some action. The real test of whether or not DoD is taking this contamination crisis seriously or not is how quickly they're cleaning up these bases.
We also asked Congresswoman Elaine Luria what she's doing to help. Luria says she helped pass the PFAS Action Act of 2021 in the House, which would set limits on these chemicals in drinking water and direct federal money to clean up contaminated sites. But the bill hasn't passed the Senate. It's been sitting in committee since July of last year.
It's really important that Congress and the DoD hold DoD accountable, make sure they clean up this mess. But more importantly, that they let service members know that they may have really high levels of PFAS in their blood so they can have a conversation with their doctor.
So if you have served on or lived near one of the bases, especially more than 10 years ago, the EWG recommends you talk to your doctor and get a blood test to look at PFAS levels and help reduce ongoing exposures. Now, when it comes to drinking water at these bases, Faber says you're not drinking as much PFAS chemicals as you were 10 years ago. And if you're living on a base today, he added the water meets the EPA standard for the safe amount of PFAS that a human can consume. Zach Dahlheimer, News 3.
At 16, my passion was to give back to the community, to help those in need.
At a young age, Kevin Ferrara answered the call, first as a volunteer firefighter and eventually as an airman at many bases, including here at Langley Air Force Base.
That was really my dream assignment. A lot of our time was comprised of doing training, and that involved anything from rescue training, medical training, to aircraft rescue firefighter training.
He spent 10 years as a firefighter at Langley before retiring in 2017. At that point, he started hearing about PFAS chemicals, man-made industrially produced compounds, also known as forever chemicals. Last month, News 3 looked into reports of PFAS chemicals found at Langley and other military bases. The Environmental Working Group stating the largest source of PFAS at bases is firefighting foam.
It was used in training exercises widely.
According to the DoD, the foam containing PFAS chemicals is known as aqueous film-forming foam, or AFFF. In a report from last October, officials said the foam is used by the DoD, civilian firefighting groups, and many industries to put out fuel fires.
The foam creates a blanket, kind of snuffs out the oxygen and contains the fuel so that it can't burn.
Chesapeake fire crews recently confirmed the foam was used to help put out the fire on the Spirit of Norfolk. Ferrara tells us he used AFFF throughout his time at Langley.
We would discharge foam just to make sure that the apparatus was in service. The fire crews did that pretty much every day. So just imagine the amount of foam, over that time that was discharged.
After retiring, he eventually got a blood test for PFAS.
When I got the results, it actually shocked me as to the amount that I have in my system. At first, it was very frustrating. I was angry, but I can't change the past. I work to change the future.
We've switched to this universal green, and this is now on all of our apparatus.
This is what Virginia Beach firefighters use today. This is a foam that they've had for about a year now that replaces the old AFFF foam they used to use. Only this foam has no carcinogens or PFAS chemicals.
The main reason why we're making the switch is to avoid the potential exposure to our responders and to cleanup companies.
In December, the DoD stated the department's research and development effort involves finding effective substitutes for AFFF. The department also implemented PFAS blood testing for firefighters and is working to improve its testing implementation plan. Virginia Code also states as of last July, no one, including local governments or agencies in the Commonwealth, shall use foam designed to fight flammable flammable liquid fires containing PFAS chemicals for testing or training purposes. However, it does not limit the use of these foams in emergency firefighting.
The time is now. Either regulate or eliminate PFAS chemicals.
For Ferrara, he's still a volunteer firefighter, but his mission, along with fighting fires, includes fighting for his colleagues.
For me, it's all about, public safety, giving back to the community, 110%, and just helping who I can and whenever I can.
Virginia Beach firefighters told us they're disposing their AFFF foam safely and properly. Now, Ferrara and others recommend that if you use this type of firefighting foam or served on military bases reported to have PFAS chemicals, especially more than 10 years ago, get a blood test to look at PFAS levels and help reduce ongoing exposures. Zach Dahlheimer, News 3.